My normal process is to write a segment of the blog, and then I wait a day or so, and then I make a video. This is fairly recent that I started doing it this way, but I'm going to break from it a little bit because I've had an email exchange with an old good friend of mine, and I think, and I asked him, there's some good stuff in here. Do you mind if I use it? And he's quite generous, so he said, use it any way that you want to. Uh, and I've recently reconnected with my friend. His name is Rob McCaskill. He's a producer, an actor, a director, a teacher of acting, and I'm sure more. Like I say, we've reconnected after a pretty probably over 30 years. So he said, use it any way that you wanted, and I think the way that I'm going to do it is I'm just going to read you the email and let you just eavesdrop on this conversation that we had. It actually is an email following. We had a little bit of contact. Rob connected with me on Facebook, and then we emailed back and forth just to set up a time to have a phone conversation. And we had a phone conversation yesterday. And this is what we discussed, which I consider this email to be a segment in the blog. All right, let's see here. Yeah, we'll start here in the stream. This is me to Rob. Rob, it was so great to speak with you. I want to thank you for some great insights, and so great to hear your voice. You have so much openness and hospitality. A real friend is someone that you can just pick up with where you left off after 30 plus years. Altman wanted to get fired from Whirly Fuck. We in our phone conversation, we're talking about Robert Altman and talking about his process as an artist. And he started directing all these shit TV shows in the 50s. And one was called Whirly Bird, about helicopter emergencies, terrible show. But that he got a lot of his chops working there. But then he got fired. So it's like Altman wanted to get fired from, and by the way, both Rob and I share a great admiration for Robert Altman. And we were talking about the movie Nashville, which I saw a few years ago in Los Angeles with Paula. We went to this revival movie theater in Santa Monica. And I actually think one of the first what I call real writing pieces that I've done on the blog, one of the first segments that I think it started to become good writing was this piece, Art Has Its Day in LA. And on this particular day, Paul and I, we saw that movie Nashville, and we went to the Getty Museum and we saw a Turner exhibit. And I'm a great fan of both Turner and Altman. So anyway, a little bit of backstory. I don't think there's going to be many more of those digressions. The rest should be pretty explanatory. You can get it in context, but that's just what this is referring to. Altman get fired from. I followed with, yes, he had a voice, not meant for that. I have unconsciously made these decisions, but suffered a lot of Sturm und Drang and had to do a lot of work for my conscious mind to catch up with my unconscious about what happened. I don't think that has affected my productivity, but it has given me a lot of unnecessary pain. My most recent segment, okay by me, but not a favorite. Actually, I just did the video of the most recent segment, and I actually think it's pretty good. So that's changed since 8:23 this morning. But my most recent segment, okay by me, but not a favorite, is about being rejected by inferior people. I see that now after our conversation. But there is no rejection, I guess. There is only connection or not. I thought more about corporate envy because I know you're working on it, and obviously so am I. I think Henry Ford II envied artist Ken Miles because Ford II wasn't doing anything. He had all the narcissistic trappings of wealth and power, but he hated himself because he never got to tell himself that he was good at something. Manipulating one's way into a position of power in a hierarchy or inheriting the power isn't doing anything. He saw Ken Miles' joy. He saw Miles' passion and talent. And he hated Miles for it because he had never had anything like that in his life. Also, I think Ford II hated Miles because people loved Miles. Miles was the heart of the Ford Motor Company, not Ford II. Ford II wanted to be the star. Miles didn't care if he was the star. Most people looked up to Miles. Ford II inwardly despaired that no one really respected or admired him. They just dealt with his power. Plus, because Miles was an artist, he exposed the mediocrity of the corporate groupthink that Ford II presided over. Miles was just doing his thing, but it made Ford II look bad. One man accomplished more than an army of sycophants. I hope this is helpful. It really is my story, and it has happened to me 1,000 times, and I think I'm just getting a handle on it. I read a book years ago called The Rise of the Creative Class. The author posits that artists are the top of the food chain, the engine of everything. The book was mostly about economics. Spielberg is more important than his lawyers, for example. But I think it applies to everything. Henry Ford II hated Miles because Miles was the real king, not Ford II. I've avoided thinking of art or myself in this way because I thought it arrogant and immodest. But I say it humbly now. We are artists, and we are at the top of the pyramid. I like this email. I'd like to put it on the blog as a brief segment. I won't do it without your okay. I could use your name or black it out, whatever you prefer. It was so good to speak to you. Your friend, Rick. And then I added this. I missed the obvious thing. Miles couldn't be controlled. He followed no authority except the dictates of his own truth. This pissed off Ford II no end. As a narcissist, Ford II's identity as boss was more important to him than truth or excellence. Miles got to develop his chops further with Ford, but it was time to go. Ford II knew that Miles was bigger than Ford Motor Company, and he had to suppress that. Employee became competitor in an odd way, so Ford II stole from Miles. My current question, survival without Ford Motor Company. All the corporation can offer is the illusion of financial security. How to make this work on a practical plane without them, RT. And Rob quickly replied, as friends tend to do. Hey, Rick, Celia just stepped out the door, giving me a chance to write some email. You beat me to it. Wanted to write you and say what a pleasure it was to sit again with you and rap about our questions and insights. Henry Ford II, can you imagine how happy he could have been had he metabolized his jealousy, moved past it, gotten creative about how best to help Miles and all his other employees? I've heard about certain CEOs who create fertile environments. They admire their charges. Reminds me of my friend Harold Bloom, who I never met except through his writing. His critical essays are admirations, and he includes his own emotional responses, writing in a personal way, jumping around, making connection between authors, and as a result, creates a kind of art of his own. Please post your email in whatever way you'd like. Loved reading it. Talk again soon, Rob. P.S. Alex Lyris and I are working on a stage show, putting it up next month. We produced it in LA 3 years ago, and finally it's going up here. It's about a man recovering consciousness after living in a coma. Poetry, right? Just so you know, if you don't hear from me, it's probably because I'm putting out fires. Cheers, Rob. And then finally, I respond again. I love Harold Bloom. Breaking every bone in your body, break every bone of your body with your show. Regaining consciousness, beautiful. Great insight, Reforward, very true, very helpful. It's a clue, a direction. Yes, business can be art as much as anything else. Take care, pal. Okay. So that's that, and the process continues. Copyright Richard Thomas, 2019.